Hi, hello, and if you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you've been here before, welcome back. Now, clearly, not on a canal in this video. I'm in a wood having a afternoon stroll around. It's a particularly cold day. It's about 3 degrees centigrade out here, mid-30s Fahrenheit, quite chilly indeed. Now, the video that follows was supposed to be one video about a recent visit I made to a city to have a look at some canals. But it's turned into a slightly longer video than I was planning or anticipating, and so therefore I've split it into two. So this is the first part of my visit to that city to have a look at its canals. Enjoy. Okay, so here I am in Dublin, and you may be wondering why. Well, I'm here to catch up with a couple of friends, but I've also come to Dublin to have a look at this. So this is the other reason why I'm here. The canals of Dublin. This is the Grand Canal, the other canal is the Royal Canal and is on the other side of the River Liffey. Now these canals were built, I believe, in the sort of 1750s to 1800s, and the idea was to link Dublin to inland waterways for the transport of goods. So let's have a look at these canals. So this is the route I had planned, starting at the Grand Canal Dock, walking up to the River Liffey, and then down the River Dodder before returning to my start point and then walking south down the Grand Canal in search of locks, narrowboats and anything of interest that I might find along the way. Yeah, these are rather spectacular. These would have been some truly amazing docks in their times. You could sort of imagine all the boats coming down through the bridge and then into the dock and unloading into larger ships ready to head off down the River Liffey and into the Irish Sea. Quite amazing. So standing here, we've got the River Liffey running up to Dublin city centre and then down towards the dock region. Here from the Liffey you could turn off into the Grand Canal, and if you head in that direction to the left, which you will struggle to see in the sun, near the church spire is the River Dodder, and to the right is the entrance to the Grand Canal. Okay, here is something that I'm more familiar with, a canal type lock. This one appears to be now just accumulating rubbish at it and is pretty much out of action, derelict. The gates have had it. The top gate here is still holding, but the two lower gates, one of them's lost all its panels and the other one is sort of tied to the side there and is in a very bad way. Even the one that's closed, second gate down that's closed, the balance beam on it is broken. So I guess these locks are no longer used. So this is Westmoreland Dock, built in 1790. It's a shame to see it in such a state of disrepair. So I guess now this is the main way off the River Liffey and onto the Grand Canal. The gates here were installed in 1992. It's not clear how this lock is operated because there's no mechanism here. I guess it's done remotely and you have to book your passage through it. So I've just been talking to a chap down here who works for the local sort of water authority, I guess you would call them, and he's been telling me that the sort of stop planks or stop plank that you can see across here is temporary and they will be reinstating this lock sometime later next year. Now this is Camden Lock and it was built in 1796. The middle lock of the three here isn't in use at all. There's no mechanism available to sort of open and close the gates. There's some sort of piston sort of hydraulics on it, but he didn't seem to know where they were controlled from. But he said that the gates for this lock are being currently built over in Amsterdam. They're finished and will be coming over later. They need to repair the stonework here to install them, and then once they're installed there will be a way of getting off the Liffey into the Grand Canal. Now these funny winches that you can see around here, he didn't know what they were for, but he suspects they were originally used for sort of opening and closing the lock gates, because as you can imagine here, these lock gates would have been really, really heavy, and there's no obvious signs of sort of where the balance beam could go, or a walkway for the balance beam. So it seems like a good guess that these would have been used for opening and closing the lock gates. Anyway, once they get this lock reinstalled and reinstated, it's going to be pretty spectacular. I don't know what they're going to do about that walkway over there. They're going to have to sort of put an up and over bridge so the boats can get through, or have a sort of swing bridge there, I guess, but we'll see. This is the River Dodder. I assume that's how you pronounce it, D-O-D-D-E-R. That's how I would pronounce it. There may be a local pronunciation. If there is, please let me know in the comments below. Now, I would have thought the basin here would have originally been lined with sort of warehouses, and there's very little sign of the original infrastructure in the area. There are a few sort of low buildings just opposite that look quite old, but the rest of it looks very, very modern indeed. Now, this appears to be one of the few original buildings in the area, the Boland's Mill. Over in the Grand Canal Docks, I only saw a couple of boats moored up. They were the sort of barge type boats. However, over by Boland's Mill, I did find a marina that contained river type boats, day boats. There were a few narrow boats in there, and also some wide beams. Now, I'm trying to follow the canal south, and there's no easy way to walk along it. There doesn't seem to be any towpath. The bridge you can just sort of see there in the distance. The canal suddenly narrowed down there and then came around this corner. So I assume I'm still on the main part of the canal, maybe on a branch here, I don't know. As I say, it's very difficult to follow the canal. No obvious towpath or footpath by the side. So here we are. I've checked the map, and this is the canal. It is rapidly narrowed down from the large basins that were sort of down by the river. This is the first sort of real lock I've encountered, a traditional, what I would call canal lock with balance beams and manually operated paddles. And there is now a sort of towpath which I can follow, which I'm going to follow along the canal here. So I'm going to continue following it south to see what I can find. I'd like to see what's the sort of most prevalent type of boat on this canal. So far, all I've seen is sort of glass fibre pleasure crafts and a few sort of very large barges. I've seen no sign of anything like a narrowboat or equivalent. But looking at these locks, they look like the sort of same as a lock I would expect to see in the UK. Looks like it could take sort of 2 narrowboats or a wide beam. Anyway, I'm going to continue south and see what I can find. So this is the second lock on the Grand Canal, lock C2, and it has a very interesting mechanism on the gates to open them. Because the gates are so close to the bridge, there's no way to have a balance beam. So what we've got here is a series of winches and wire ropes to open the gates. I've never seen anything like this before, kind of interesting. I'd like to see it in operation. I guess it's just a case of winching away as you would with the paddles. It really is a pretty canal. It's interesting how the banks here are sort of different to the UK. I'd expect the path to be a lot lower, as you'd see in the UK, and not to have this sort of 45-degree slope on them. I do wonder how they used to move the boats down along the canal before engines or anything. They could have had a horse up here on the towpath, but there's some quite mature trees close to the canal further down. Now it would have prevented towing. And there's clearly nowhere to moor along here because of this shape of the bank. You couldn't bring a boat in here and moor it because you wouldn't be able to get off the boat. Kind of interesting. Interesting shape, interesting design. Okay, so my third lock, this one's got balance beams on both sets of gates and is locked, so you couldn't go through it even if you wanted to. I could explain why I've seen no boats so far. I'd like to see what the sort of predominant boat is. As I said earlier on, all I saw was some pleasure craft, you know, the sort of fiberglass type boats, but nothing else. I wonder if there are any sort of narrow type boats or wide beams on this canal. I'll continue along a bit further and see what I can find. Now, as is traditional with me, I've lost count of my locks. This is the 4th one, I think, and it's not locked. So I guess boats could come down here if they wanted to. They'd be able to go through this lock, but could they? Now, the reason I say could they is because this boat is moored here and it's got a metal cable stretching from it across the canal. So any boat coming down here couldn't get past this boat. There's a very, very hefty cable in the way, both from the bow and the stern. I don't know why. If you know, let me know in the comments. If I can find out why, I'll let you know in my usual bit at the end of this video. But it's odd. Why have they got this set up like this? I don't understand it. As I walked along the canal, I came across a statue to Patrick Kavanagh, an Irish poet and novelist. Yet another lock. This is my, what, 5th, 6th? Who knows? I always lose counts of locks. This one's not locked up. There's a chain on it, but it's not locked. And interestingly, like a lot of the other locks, it's built very, very close to a bridge. They do like building their locks close to bridges. What I would describe as my first evidence of a non-commercial boat on the Grand Canal. This is a wide beam, and it looks like it's one that somebody lives on permanently. So, yep, there are boats on the canal here. And the first one I've seen is a wide beam. My second liveaboard, another wide beam. In fact, an even wider beam than the last wide beam. So it does look like there are boats on the canal. It looks like there are people living on the canal, just not that many down in the Dublin city centre area, down towards the Basin, which is kind of interesting. Well, this is my 6th lock and another one close to a bridge. I know it's my 6th lock because there's a sign behind me that says lock number 6, and it's another one that has got the strange sort of wire mechanisms to open the gates at the far end. Behind me is a pub called the Cafeteria at the Barge. It is one of the few, or the first sort of canal-side pubs that I've seen. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of my walk along the Grand Canal. I've been past 6 locks, and I think I've seen a total of 4 boats, 2 of which were sort of restaurant-y, sort of pubby type boats, permanently moored up, and 2 wide beams that look like they were lived on. It's surprising I'm not seeing more boats. I don't know why. If you do know why, please let me know in the comments. I'm going to continue on a little bit further down here to see what I can find, but I'm going to turn around soon and head back into the city. Interesting lock sign here at lock number 7. Don't recall seeing that on the earlier locks. I'll have to have a look on the way back. Okay, so this is lock number 7, another interesting one with a mixture of balance beam and a sort of wire winch mechanism here. If they didn't build the lock so close to the bridge, they wouldn't have these problems. They could put in a full balance beam. Anyway, looking up the canal here, there's a straight stretch here. I can't see any boats on it, so I'm going to turn around and start heading back down towards the city centre. Walking along this canal has been really interesting. It's a lovely canal, incredibly clear water, and yet there doesn't seem to be any boats on it. Really, really odd. As I've said before, if you know the reason why there are no boats on it, please let me know in the comments below. But it does seem strange. There's mooring places, but no boats. Very odd indeed. Okay, so that was part 1, and I found it really interesting looking at this canal in Dublin. It had so much in common with canals in the UK, same sort of style of locks, for example. Different construction, you know, with those sort of sloping banks, you know, the quite sort of angular 45-degree banks, not the sort of straight drop down that we get in the canals in the UK. And also what I found really surprising was that on the Grand Canal I saw no boats. There was a few boats moored up which were being used as bars and restaurants and have you, but there was no boat. I saw no narrowboats. Well, there was 2 wide beams, but I didn't really see anything else. Yes, there was a few sort of river type cruisers and quite big barges and boats down towards the Basin at the start, but they just seemed to be there and not going anywhere, not doing much. It was also quite disappointing to discover you couldn't actually get off that canal and onto the River Liffey because the locks were broken. There was no way to get off, and those won't be repaired for at least another 6 months, possibly a year. Gates are being made, but they're non-functional at the moment. But anyway, I hope you found my sort of exploration of the Grand Canal in Dublin, which I must admit was more like a water feature in a sort of suburban garden. Not in terms of its size, but in fact in terms of its use and the way it looked. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed my exploration of that. Now, as usual, if you've enjoyed this, found this interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you've got any comments on it, please leave them below. I'd love to know why there are so few, if any, boats on the Grand Canal in Dublin. Anyway, on the screen now, you'll see a QR code, which if you scan it or click the link in the description below will take you through to a free newsletter about my narrowboat, the Grey Wagtail. Thanks for watching for this long. Bye for now.